What's up YouTube? So today I'm going to make a detailed guide and review about Kamisato Ayato. I'll cover his best artifacts, weapons, his best teams, and his general strength in the meta, and among other things. So enjoy the video. Alright, so first starting off with Ayato's kit, we're going to start off with his talents. So now cause Ayato's normal attacks don't matter at all, you can totally ignore those. Now Ayato's E and Ayato's Q are the main parts of his kit. Ayato's E transforms all of his attacks into 3-hit Hydro attacks that do decent multiplier damage. One notable thing about them is that they are pretty slow attacks, so it's kind of hard to constantly apply Hydro with them. And also, the moment you use your E, the cooldown starts, so it's not like Child's or Scaramuche's E, where the cooldown starts after you finish your E skill. Another thing to note is that you can generate anywhere from about 3 to 6 particles depending on how lucky you are with particle generation in his E. And also his E counts as normal attack damage, so something like Yun Jin's buff can buff your Ayato's normal attack damage. Also, the E ability has a water clone thing, which is not really important, but I guess it's worth knowing. So Aito's burst, the Kamisato Ayato Suiyu, is similar to Ganyu's burst, where it creates a field around him, a decently wide radius that constantly does some AoE hydro damage once in a while to any enemies within the field. One notable thing to note about this is that its cooldown and its duration are very long, 18-second duration, 20-second cooldown, and it buffs normal attack damage by about 18%. Another important thing to notice is that this is the best way for Ayato to actually apply Hydro to any enemy that is hit, and also it has quadratic scaling, meaning the more enemies that are grouped up, it does 4 times more damage per enemy that is grouped up. But Ayato's burst does not come with a plethora of issues, the biggest one being its energy cost. Ayato's burst has an 80 energy cost, and he generates a decent amount of particles while he's on field, but not enough to satisfy the 80 energy cost burst. And also his passive talent regenerates about 2 energy every second when he's not on field, from 0 to 40, but it would be better if that was like 40 to 80 because it just does not help. So you can use Ayato's burst about once every 2 rotations, similarly to Child's melee burst, or Scaramuche's burst, which is okay, but you also can't double swirl with Kaza or Sucrose like this every rotation, which is a big downside. Ayato has a plethora of weapons to choose from, but none of them are really good for him for free-to-play players. For free-to-play players, the best option would be the Blacklift Longsword. This is just because of its crit substat, and its passive is also nice if you can get it to work. But other than that, he doesn't really have any other free-to-play option. The Flu and Amanoma Kageuchi are serviceable, but they're still not the best for him because they do not buff his damage too much. And the Amanoma helps out with his energy regeneration, which is good, and the Flute does provide him with some minuscule extra damage. But overall, Blacklift is still his best free-to-play option. I will provide a basic stats sheet for his best weapon with help from u/XENO_VX from Reddit Ayato mains. So thank you to that person for making this spreadsheet, and I will put that up right now. Ayato's artifacts are more lenient, with him having a decent amount. 4-piece Heart of the Depth and 4-piece Echoes of Offering are overall his best options, with 4-piece Echoes of Offering being a little bit better if your RNG is overall pretty good. The 4-piece Heart of the Depth is a very good alternative, and you can also farm Blizzard Strayer while farming for that dungeon. And 2-piece with 2-piece Shimenawa or 2-piece Gladiator and 2-piece Heart of the Depth is pretty good as well. And finally, 4-piece Heart of the Depth can keep up with, and finally 4-piece Gladiator's Finale can keep up with 4-piece Heart of the Depth in terms of DPS. Ayato's teams are also very flexible. He has a few notable ones, being Ayato National, Ayato Hyper Carry, Ayato Electro Charged, and Ayato Hyper Bloom. All of these teams are pretty good, though the one I would recommend the most is Ayato National, and Ayato Hyper Bloom is also a very good alternative if you have characters like Kusanali, who is basically needed for that team. Now, some major things to realize about these team comps is that for all of them, except for the Hyper Bloom team, Aito is not the best in slot carry. For National, Child National is better. For any Freeze team, Mona or Kokomi would be better. And even in Hyper Bloom, people would prefer using Kokomi just because of the support utility and the Dueling Tails buff that she can give you. For these reasons, Aito is a jack of all trades and a master of none, which is a positive and a negative. It's a positive because you don't have to roll for 5 different Hydro characters, and it's a negative because he won't work in their specific teams as good as any of those Hydro characters I said before. For example, once again, Child is better than National, and Kokomi and Mona are better in Freeze. Now, this is a major thing to take note of. And also, characters like Yalan and Xingqiu exist, which massively hurt every single Hydro character because they have to immediately compete with those two Hydro characters. And those two Hydro characters are the best characters in this video game. So, anyways, every single Hydro character is automatically put down a notch because you get Xingqiu for free, and he's already a free very high damaging Hydro unit. Another very major thing to take note of is that Raiden is also taking in part of the second phase of Genshin Impact 3.3. And if you do not have Raiden and you don't have Ayato, you're not going to be going for Ayato because Raiden is just the superior choice in both meta and in style. There, I said it, Raiden is hot. So, yeah. Now, for Ayato's general strength in the meta, once again, similarly to Raiden, I do think Ayato is one of the better DPS characters in the game. I do think he's very competitive to DPS characters like Ito and Child because they all do very similar DPS. Their teams do very similar DPS, and like Child, he has a very similar role as an on-field Hydro enabler, and being Hydro is a massive upside because Hydro is a very broken element, and also having an on-field, off-field presence with its burst is very valuable for things like freeze, and also its long duration makes it very valuable. But his burst's very high energy cost and his mediocre damage inside of his E skill does bring him down a notch compared to characters like Ayaka and Ganyu, who can just destroy any content that they are faced with their insane and broken abilities. So because of this, he cannot compete with those characters, but he's a very balanced A tier character in my opinion. And this is where I would place him in a tier list. So, what's my final verdict on Ayato? Should you avoid him? Should you consider him? Should you build pity? Or should you splurge and spend all your primos to get him? I think if you already have Raiden and you like the 4 stars on his banner, you should build pity and pull on his banner if you have the primos. Because if you want the 4 stars on his banner, and you get them, and you also get Ayato, you will not be disappointed because he's a very solid Hydra DPS character that has aged well and will age well in the future. So that was my full in-depth Ayato guide and review. I hope you guys enjoyed and learned something about this. Ayato has been one of my favorite characters to play and learn since his first banner's release, and I've invested a decent amount of time into him, so my opinion is at least slightly valid. I will come out with the video later on, maybe about some pros and cons about Ayato because I was not able to cover that in this video. And if you enjoy this video and you learned something from it, please do subscribe. I'm only at 30 subscribers and I need more. Por favor. And yeah, bye bye.